Hello, and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. Often in this program we speak about the ongoing reality of the suffering and persecuted church. Today, however, I'd like to take a moment to reflect, after 20 years, on how the Catholic and Orthodox churches in Russia have emerged from 70 years of state persecution to a freedom which is allowing a revival of faith and movements towards reconciliation between these churches. As Catholic writer Joseph Botum stated in his article, What Happened at Fatima? He says, maybe the single most important person in the 20th century's long struggle against communism wasn't Ronald Reagan. Maybe it wasn't Margaret Thatcher, Lech Walesa or Václav Havel, Alexander Solzhenitsyn or Mikhail Gorbachev. Maybe the most important figure was a 10-year-old girl named Lucia dos Santos. It was Lucia who went out one day in 1917 with her cousins Francisco and Jacinta to tend the family's sheep, and ended up having a talk about godless Russia with the Blessed Virgin Mary near a little place in northern Portugal called Fatima. Our Lady warned, Russia will spread its errors throughout the world, raising up wars and persecutions of the Church. The good will be martyred, the Holy Father will have much to suffer, and various nations will be annihilated. The world was going to suffer by means of war, hunger, and persecution. Years later, when Sister Lucia, then 93, met with a messenger from Pope John Paul II in 2000, she repeated one last time her conviction that the visions of Fatima concerned, above all, the struggle of atheistic communism against the Church and against Christians. Our Lady in Fatima had predicted the defeat of communism, but also her love for this country, declaring Russia a jewel in her crown. Jose Correa, journalist, founder of Catholic Radio and Television Network, and presently the director of Aid to the Church in Need in Brazil, was privileged to work with the fledgling church in Russia after 70 years of state atheism, and one of the first to communicate the message of Fatima to viewers in Russia. Jose Correa, thank you for being with us here today in our program.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
Jose, can you tell us a little bit about the first contact with Russia?
Well, my first contact with Russia came on a professional basis. I'm a journalist. I was a journalist by then. It was in the 80s, 86. I was working for a Brazilian news agency, IBIM, and they sent me to the Soviet Union at the time to do a different kind of report on the life of people over there, because the media was full of analysis and reports on the political situation. But they were interested to see how people are living, what are the ideas of people. So I went there. My idea was to interview people in different sectors of life, workers, students, young people, old people, that sort. And then I thought that I should interview also a Christian, because Christians were persecuted then in the Soviet Union. And the ideas, the principles of the Soviet state were atheistic. So it would be interesting to see how can a Christian survive in an atheistic environment. So through the help of people expert in those things, especially Keston College in London.
It was in contact with the underground church at that time.
Yes, yeah. Keston College was the main expert in the context of the underground churches, Orthodox and Catholic over there in the Soviet Union. And they gave me some addresses of people to visit. So to make a long story short, I chose a Christian, a Catholic. A young one was a student at the Faculty of Medicine in Vilnius, in Lithuania, which was part of the Soviet Union.
Wouldn't it have been dangerous for this person to be in touch with you? I mean, if Christians were underground, a journalist coming from afar to take contact with them, they would have run away.
No, of course it was. But I was so naive. I did not know very well those things. And I went to his house and knocked at his door in Vilnius. And his mother was absolutely terrified when she saw a foreign man over there.
You said, hi, I'm a Brazilian journalist.
And he had just come back from a concentration camp in Siberia. He was condemned to 5 years in concentration camp, and he was tortured because he formed and was leading a prayer group at the university. He was arrested and he was tortured because they wanted to know who are the other members of his prayer group. And he did not reveal. one of the tortures he suffered was they were beating with iron bars in his knees for him to reveal the names. Up to today, he cannot walk properly. He walks with difficulty, in spite of many surgeries he had to suffer from that because of the tortures. He had been just freed from the concentration camp. He accomplished his term in prison.
But he agreed to meet with you.
No, there was, because of the situation, I could not have an appointment. As I said, I arrived there and knocked at the door.
Were you being followed at that time, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I went there as a tourist, not as a journalist. Nobody knew there that I was a journalist. And people at Caston told me not to tell I was a journalist, otherwise my mission would be ended, of course. But even then, his mother was terrified, closed the door in my face. And so I went down, it was in one of those Soviet apartment buildings. I was outside in the street, hopeless. What do I do now? I did something wrong, but was it? I couldn't understand what was wrong. Then a bearded young man approached me discreetly and said, "Who are you? Would you like to, with Julius?" The name of the boy I wanted to interview was Julius Sosnauskas. "What do you want with Julius?" I said, "No, I came from Brazil and Caston College gave the address. I would like to talk to him about his experiences in prison." When I mentioned Caston, then he smiled. He knew that was from a secure source. And then he told me, "You can meet him in a forest because it's very dangerous that he be seen with foreigners here in the city. He's being followed, and so we have to disguise the secret police." So we met the following day in a forest totally outside of town. And for my surprise, he came with a famous dissident woman, a lady, Sadonaite. She was a secret nun. She was also arrested because it was discovered that she had a convent, a secret convent in apartment buildings. They rented several apartments that communicated inside, and they were working in industries as workers, blue-collar workers. In the evenings, they will do their prayers.
But living as a congregation.
As a congregation.
What was your first impression of Julius?
It was impressive. Coming from Brazil, where people are very joyous, open, we don't have much worries. He was very serious, very, very, very serious. Immediately from his first words, I could see it was a man of deep faith. That impressed me a lot. And I was talking to him about his experiences. He was telling me about his torture and life in prison. He almost died several times. There was hunger. There was extreme cold. It was in the middle of Siberia. He was in the Perm concentration camp that was dubbed the death camp because so many people were dying there in those times. Many Christians, many martyrs died over there. When after some 20 minutes, 30 minutes conversation, he told me, "Well, Jose, excuse me, I must end our conversation now because remember of my prayer group that I mentioned to you. Well, during my absence, when I was in the concentration camp, they continued to meet. And we're going to have a meeting, a prayer meeting, here in the same forest, in another place of the forest.
So
I must go there."
He was still continuing with his Christian...
That was I was astonished. I said, "But Julius, I don't understand. You were arrested. You were tortured. You suffered a lot. You almost died several times because of this prayer group. You come back and the first thing you are doing is to come back to do the same. Aren't you afraid?" He said, "Jose, of course not. I'm a Catholic. I'm with God. I'm not afraid of anything." I said, "But come on, you must be afraid. You were with God before and look what happened." I must say that at that moment, I was just a so-so Catholic. I was not very much practicing. So, and for me to see in this kind of faith was absolutely astonishing. I could not understand logically. He said, "Listen, let me explain to you how we see those things here. Perhaps you there in Brazil have a different situation. It's hard for you to understand. But for us, if we consecrate ourselves to God, everything that will happen to us will be good. See, what will be the worst thing that will happen, could happen possibly to me now that I came back? They will discover me and they will kill me. Is this bad? Think a little bit about it. Is this bad? I'll be a martyr of God. I'll go straight to heaven. I'll be an example to my family, to my friends, to my people, and to the whole church. This is excellent. Also, I will be in heaven doing all the good that I can do to my family, to my friends, to my people. So it's excellent. What the world sees as something terrible, for us Catholics, is excellent. And then he said, if it's not this that will happen, what could be that the world considers terrible? I'll be discovered, I'll be arrested, and I'll suffer what I already suffered again. Is this bad? Of course not. Because I consecrated myself to God. All my sufferings are offered to Him. He will apply this to help other people. And inside the concentration camp, you cannot imagine how much good you can do. Inside the prisons, you can be an example to other prisoners. You can evangelize them. You may even be an instrument of God to convert them. So what the world sees again as something terrible could be marvelous, could be something fantastic. Otherwise, if it's not this that will happen, I'll be here doing what I'm doing, which means I'll doing all the good that I can do, which is also excellent. So moral of this story is that if you consecrate yourself to God, everything that will happen to you will be good. A good will be taken out of all of this. Well, I was absolutely flabbergasted.
You asked him at the same time a fateful question. You asked him, what do you need for Russia? Which was a fateful question for you and a fateful question for him.
Yeah, no, it was a little later in the question because we took a few minutes more. I must say that this conversation was an experience of conversion for me.
At that moment?
At that moment. It was, I said, I'd like to be a Christian like this. Because I could see that they were happy. And Niole Sadonaite, that was at his side, she suffered even more than he suffered. She was a deeply happy person. I could say, I'd like to be like this. I can see God living in them. So I wanted to do the same. And I decided to do whatever to help these persecuted Christians. And I asked him, what I can do to help you in the Western world? What I can do? They said, well, you are a journalist, and the thing that we need the most is not money, is not medicines, is nothing of this. What we need is the church, the presence of the church.
Jose, after the fall of the wall, you were participating in one of the most extraordinary broadcasts which could happen for the Christians in Russia, which was a satellite link-up between Moscow and Fatima.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how this came about?
I consider this privately as a kind of a miracle, what happened. I had already made friendship with a young Orthodox priest who was very active in Moscow, in intellectual circles, knowing journalists and people, TV people. He told me, there is a director of the Russian radio who's interested in having religious programming there. He's not Christian, but he believes that Christians could have an interesting, wholesome influence over the youth, especially, because there's a big concern in Russian circles at that moment that the youth was not believing in anything anymore, not in communism, no Christianity, no religion, nothing. They were absolutely empty. They were looking for something. So they were afraid that they could go to drugs or alcoholism and things like that. So I went to visit this man, and without knowing what was going to happen, just offering that we'll like to have some religious programs, he came to me and said, okay, but before I give the answer, he said, let me call my colleague from the television. And he asked to come down the director, one of the directors of Russia television. It was the biggest network.
The state television.
The state television. It was the biggest network in the country, covering the whole of Russia and several neighboring countries as well. And he came then, I gave the answer about it. It was, for my surprise, they asked, what kind of program would you do then for us? If you give you half an hour, what kind of religious program you'll do for us? I thought, oh,
You're stuck.
yeah, what I'll do. Then I thought about Fatima. I always have been devout of Our Lady of Fatima. I liked Fatima very much.
And of course, this historical relationship with
With
Russia.
Russia, of course, yes. When she said that Russia's going to convert, etc. And I said, I'll make a program about Fatima, Our Lady of Fatima. They never heard of it. What is this? What is Fatima? So I explained to them what it was. And the TV director said, wait a minute, this could be an interesting program for our network. That could be real journalism. Could you do something alive from there?
Like a live link-up.
Yeah. I said, yes. There is on the 13th of October, there is the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima, when every year more or less 1 million pilgrims go there. It's an enormous event. It is physically very beautiful. 1 million people carrying candles and singing. It's very, very impressive and very beautiful.
This is 1991 we're talking about.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And so they agreed.
They agreed, but then I thought, as things are that well, let me ask for more. I told them, listen, half an hour is too little. We cannot do an interesting program, some special event like this in just half an hour. We need at least 1 hour. I said, oh, but 1 hour in a national network, you know what that means. It's coast to coast. It's impossible. Then, well, okay, you get 1 hour.
Good evening. Starting right now, from this very moment, there is a direct link between Fatima, the holy Christian shrine in Portugal, and Russia. Without any exaggeration, this is a truly exceptional and historic event. And it has become possible due to the recent profound changes in your country, Russia. We'll present panels of specialists of both countries who work together to bridge the two extremes of our continent. We hope that with this program, many people will understand more clearly the name which has been frequently and for a long time associated with Fatima, the altar of the world.
Jose, something like this couldn't have gone without a spiritual battle at the same time.
Yes. The main problem was that all kinds of interferences started to happen the days before the broadcast, because it was something historical. It was the first time a religious program, and a Catholic one at that, was going to be broadcast to the whole of Russia, and the neighboring countries have been all of them communistic for many, many years. In Russia, 80 years. So all kinds of people wanted to participate in the program, Portuguese personalities, some bishops that have nothing to do with the story wanted to make statements, and groups of religious people wanted to participate. It was a nightmare. So in the day before, we had a meeting in the evening to settle finally what's going to be.
You must have been a bit desperate.
Yeah, and we are decided not to allow for any interference of other groups or people, personalities, politicians, whatsoever. And it was a very hard meeting, because there are several people wanting to insert things into the program. And the Russians were also participating, but they led the discussions to me because they didn't understand the language. We had to translate, and we had agreed before that there would be no interference in the program. Then we went to sleep. The following day, I woke up very early. I went to pray at the shrine asking...
You're a bit nervous.
Well, not a bit. Not a bit at all. I went to pray asking for God and Our Lady of Fatima to bless this program so that everything will be all right. When I was leaving the church, the shrine, the Russian producer was coming in and said, "Oh, Jose, I could not sleep. I had a terrible night after the terrible meeting we had yesterday evening. I was so worried." But then finally I slept a little bit and I had a strange dream. He was an atheistic. He was not Christian at all, not even baptized. His name was Sergei. Sergei said, you know, there are these beings that you Christians, I think you call them angels. I saw angels over we were broadcasting the program. I saw in my dream, and there were angels protecting us, and everything went all right. I said, oh, fantastic, Sergei. Let us pray that what you saw this is what's going to happen. I said, I'm most impressed. I really saw this happening. Well, then we went to the program, and thanks be to God, it went perfectly all right. It was very good. From Russia, we received some phone calls. In those days, a phone call from Russia was very difficult. Say that the program was being broadcasted whole. There was no censorship. It was broadcasted in full. And after the program, Sergei said, I want to be a Christian, because what happened in the program is exactly what I saw in the dream. And he told his dream of the angels protecting the program.
Jose, the program was not just broadcast once, but it was broadcast a second time.
Oh, that was another story, yes.
Can you tell us in 2 words?
Yeah, this director of the Russian TV called me one day very angry, saying, Jose, you must stop this campaign you are organizing with your group of people calling us to broadcast again the Fatima program. You know this is impossible. You must stop with those phone calls. I said, but listen, we're not organizing any campaign. I don't have a clue that there were phone calls to Russian TV. What is happening? So there are thousands of people calling all the time here. It's impossible. And we cannot broadcast again. This is a national network, you know. We have our own schedules. You cannot arrange again to broadcast. I don't know why people are doing this. Well, we discussed a little bit, and then that was it. A few weeks later, he called me back again. He said, Jose, I think I found a solution, but I want your permission. I don't know if you're going to like that. In a few days, we're going to have the commemoration of the Communist Revolution of 1917, when there is this enormous military parade in the Red Square in Moscow. And all televisions have to stop their broadcasting to broadcast this military parade over there. But this year, for the first time since 1917, there will be no parade. Gorbachev cancelled the commemorations. So we got stuck with the whole morning empty without any program. Would you allow us to repeat the Fatima program instead of the communist commemoration? I remember that moment. I remember as if it was today, the sentence of the Bible, Deus irridebit eos, and God will laugh at them. It was like God laughed, you know. Instead of the Communist Revolution, we marked the beginning of the new era for Russia with Our Lady of Fatima.
We see for today how the relationship, the reconciliation that's occurring between the Catholic and Orthodox Church. Jose, what is your hope for the evangelization of Russia and for the re-evangelization of Europe through Russia under the protection of Our Lady?
I was extremely happy that lately several bishops and important figures of the Orthodox Church are saying that a strategic alliance should be made between the Catholic and the Orthodox Church to defend our basic Christian values, which are under attack from the secularist world, and especially by the media. I think this is of enormous importance for the future of the world. Everything unites us, very little things divide us. We should work together for the new evangelization of the world, who is in dire need of that. So I pray very much that this will happen. And we are seeing before our eyes, this little by little, step by step, this is starting to happen.
This history is happening before us.
History is, and we are, everybody, praying for this and helping the organizations who are doing this could be tools in the hands of God for the realization of this fantastic new future where Christ will be brought to society again.
Jose Correa, thank you for being with us here today on our program.
It was my pleasure to have been here.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today in our program. And if you'd like to know more about the story of Catholics in Russia, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.